Welcome back.
And we're continuing our exploration of the material in the Law of One book.
That's right. We've been talking about its core idea, which is, well, essentially the all is one.
Yeah, this fundamental interconnectedness of everything, all stemming from what it calls the one infinite creator.
And it's a concept that feels really relevant today. You know, with everything going on, this idea of unity, it offers a different perspective.
It really does. So today our discussion is guided by Aima from the Expanded Awareness podcast, and we're focusing specifically on Session 3.
Session 3. Okay. What were the main takeaways there?
Well, it covers two pretty distinct areas. First, the very careful ritual they set up for communication.
Ah, the practical side of things.
Exactly, getting the conditions right. And second, some initial really interesting bits about the Great Pyramid, how it was built, and what it was for.
Okay, let's start with that ritual. It sounds like they were quite methodical.
Very. They talk about the importance of placing certain artifacts correctly, especially near the instrument's head, to create a balanced channel.
The instrument being the person receiving the communication.
Right. And the intention of everyone present was key. Their shared goal, wanting to be of service to others, that was considered really important for validating the purpose.
And they were careful about who was involved, weren't they? Keeping out influences not aligned with that service to others goal.
Yes, definitely. It suggests they felt this communication was quite sensitive to the surrounding energies. Any conflict could distort things, apparently.
Interesting. So what about the actual items? The Bible, candle, incense. They had specific adjustments for those?
They did. It wasn't just having them there. Their positions were corrected. The incense, for example, had to be perceived from the same relative angle as the Bible and candle.
Okay. Why was that? And what did each item signify?
Well, the incense was seen as an energizer for the physical body, kind of representing the human element.
Right.
Placing it relative to the others symbolized a unified perspective. Then you have the opened Bible balanced by the lit candle.
Love light and light love.
Exactly. That combination was meant to offer a vision of peace, like paradise, to the instrument's mind and emotions. The idea was to bring balance and reduce fatigue.
So a very deliberate setup to align the physical, mental, and emotional states.
Precisely. They confirmed the alignment was correct before proceeding.
Okay, so moving on to the Great Pyramid. The first question was about the capstone, which seems almost minor.
It does seem that way initially, and the questioner even notes it might not be central to the Law of One itself, but maybe a way to ease people into the material. Ra's response, though, is quite telling.
He said there were actually two capstones.
Yes. The original one, which Ra says their group designed, was made of smaller granite pieces.
Granite? Why granite?
Chosen for its crystalline properties, and interestingly, to help with atmospheric flow, they call it a chimney.
A chimney. In the pyramid.
Yeah, but Ra clarifies it means airflow ducts, designed for freshness inside but without causing disturbances. Pretty advanced thinking there.
Definitely. And the second capstone?
That came later. It was made of a more precious material, partly gold. But Ra insists this didn't change the pyramid's core properties. It was more about appearances, royal exclusivity.
Got it. So aesthetics over-function for the replacement. Which brings us to the really big question. How did they move those enormous blocks?
Yes. This is where Session 3 gets really deep, introducing the concept of intelligent energy.
Intelligent energy in rock.
Exactly. Ra explains that everything in creation has this inherent intelligence, even if the energy seems finite in, say, a single stone.
They used an analogy, didn't they? Comparing it to us, the mind-body-spirit complex.
Yes. Just like we have layers, so it does matter like rock. It has its own hierarchy of intelligence right down to its core.
So the idea is to talk to the rock.
In a sense, yes. Communicate with that intelligence. Connect the rock's finite physical energy with the infinite power in what Ra calls its more well-tuned bodies.
More well-tuned bodies.
Yeah.
Like higher dimensional aspects.
That seems to be the implication. So moving the blocks wasn't just pushing them. It involved requesting the rock's energy field to shift, to move from finity towards infinity.
Wow. So you're asking the stone to sort of displace itself energetically.
That's the idea. Ra even connects it to the saying about moving mountains with faith. Faith, in this context, relates to understanding and interacting with intelligent infinity.
But who could actually do this? Was it just anyone who understood the Law of One?
Not necessarily. Ra makes a distinction. An individual could potentially achieve this through intense purification and understanding.
But that wasn't how the pyramids were built.
No. Ra says it was done through the combined power and understanding of a social memory complex.
A collective consciousness, like a whole group mind working together.
That's a good way to put it. Their shared unity and understanding allowed them to work with this energy, even accommodating individual distortions or imperfections within the group.
Okay. And Ra mentioned a progression of understanding,
Yeah, from the law of one, leading to the laws of love, then laws of light, and finally the law of foreverness. It highlights their own ongoing journey of becoming.
which leads to the construction itself. If they could interact with energy like that, did they even move stones?
Well, for some pyramids, yes, they moved existing stone, but for the ones their social memory complex built, including the Great Pyramid, they were thought built.
Thought built. You mean created directly from thought?
Yes, using what Ra calls everlasting rock, created purely by thought.
Everlasting rock. How is that different from normal rock?
Ray describes it as a thought form with a more regular or pure energetic structure than rock formed through the usual process of thought condensing into finite energy. More stable, perhaps.
Okay, mind blown a little bit here. But if they could create it from thought, why build the Great Pyramid out of blocks? Why not just one solid piece?
Excellent question. The answer, according to Ra, is the law of confusion.
Which is basically free will.
Exactly. Their purpose was healing and initiation, creating this powerful machine. But they didn't want to just manifest a miraculous structure out of nowhere.
Because that might lead to them being worshipped, interfering with humanity's path.
Precisely. Building it with blocks made it look like a physical, albeit monumental, construction project. It respected free will by not being too overtly miraculous.
That's actually a really considerate reason in a cosmic sense. Okay, so the purpose, healing and initiation, are those separate things?
Ra presents them as deeply interconnected. Two sides of the same coin, really, based on an intent of sharing love and light.
So healing requires the healer, or the place, to be a clear channel for that love-light energy from the creator.
Yes, a purified and dedicated channel. And initiation is the process that prepares the individual mind, body, and spirit to be that channel, to serve in the creator's work.
Makes sense. They prepare the vessel before using it.
Yeah. And the pyramid's shape itself is crucial for initiation, though they say more detail will come later. They mention two main functions related to these procedures.
And they emphasized initiating the mind before the body, didn't they? Saying that's often a point where things go wrong.
Yes, a common distortion. True initiation, they suggest, involves discovering your real identity and gaining conscious control over the body, but with detachment.
Detachment. And the very first use for initiation.
Sensory deprivation. A symbolic death of the physical body's input to allow for a new beginning, a deeper inner awareness.
Powerful stuff. How did the session wrap up?
The questioner checked in on the instrument's well-being and if the ritual was okay.
And Rag's assessment?
They said the precautions were helpful, just suggested a bit more attention to neck support for the instrument.
Okay, practical feedback. Anything else?
Yes, a very specific point about the water used. It had to be from a particular chalice.
Why? What was special about the chalice?
Ra described its material as virgin, meaning it could uniquely accept, hold, and respond to the love vibration the group generated during the ritual.
So the container mattered for holding that specific energy.
Apparently so. Then Ra departed, as usual, in the peace and power of the one creator, Adonai.
Wow, so that session really covered a lot. From the nitty-gritty of ritual setup
To the truly mind-bending concepts about pyramid construction, thought forms, and intelligent energy.
Yeah, we touched on the ritual, the capstone mystery, moving blocks with consciousness, the pyramid as a thought form.
And its core purpose being this linked process of healing and initiation.
What stands out most, maybe, is that idea of intelligence in seemingly inert things, like rock. That communication is possible.
Definitely. And also the reason for the blocks respecting free will, the law of confusion. It adds such a different layer to why it might look the way it does.
It really does. It certainly makes you reconsider things.
Which leads to a thought to leave you with. How might really embracing this idea of interconnectedness, this potential for intelligence in everything around us, how might that shift your own perception of reality day to day?
Something to definitely ponder. Thank you for joining us for this look into Session 3 of the Law of One.
There's clearly much more to explore, and we hope you'll continue this journey of understanding with us.